Good afternoon. Lighting the chalice, which is the next step of the program, lighting the chalice may be a ritual that is new or unusual for some of you who are here today. Unitarian Universalists light a chalice with words of inspiration and gratitude for joys and sorrows and for connection at the beginning of our services. Lighting the chalice connects us to what each of us is sacred and what we share in common and what we personally hold to be true and eternal. Lighting the chalice also connects us to all the people whose lives are making or have made a difference on whatever scale, sharing their light as a beacon for those of us who have been honored to know them, encouraging us to carry the flame forward purposefully and joyfully. Today, Janina Dickey, Dodie's daughter-in-law, will light our chalice in memory of Dodie Messer Meeks. Our chalice lighting words are a poem by Bernadette Knoll from a photograph apparently enlarged and hung where Dodie saw it easily. It must have been meaningful to her. The poem is, "I wish to age like sea glass." I want to age like sea glass, smoothed by tides, but not broken. I want my hard edges to soften. I want to ride the waves and go with the flow. I want to catch a wave and let it carry me to where I belong. I want to be picked up and held gently by those who delight in my well-earned patina and appreciate the changes I went through to achieve that beauty. I want to enjoy the journey and always remember that if you give the ocean something breakable, it will turn it into something beautiful. I want to age like sea glass.
Good afternoon. I'm Dan King. I am stepping in to assist in this service, which has been put together by the family in place of the regular minister who was called to this church. Reverend Ed Prue is serving one of the families in Oklahoma City today in another memorial. I wanted to welcome on behalf of the family and all of the friends of the Unitarian Universalist Church here, the Emerson congregation, who have enjoyed Dodie's company for most of the last 20 years. She was quite an example to all of us. Today we have come together to honor the memory and celebrate the life of a remarkable woman who graced Houston with her presence for so many years. It is with both heavy hearts and grateful spirits that we've come together today to remember and reflect upon the extraordinary journey of your beloved Darlene Marcus Dickey Messer Meeks, a woman whose life was a testament to energetic awareness, kindness, and unwavering love. Throughout her long and fulfilling life, Dodie touched the hearts of all who had the privilege of knowing her. I only met Dodie last year at the occasion of her celebration of her 100th birthday last March. And I was privileged to hear her, one of her poems at that time. But her wisdom, compassion, and generosity were boundless, and she leaves behind a legacy that will continue to inspire and guide us. As one of the great early feminists, she lived with dignity and grace, embodying the virtues of persistence and good humor and amazing creativity. Her spirit and her infectious smile always lit up the room as she entered, making the world a brighter place for all of the rest of us. And so, as the family share memories and stories today, and as you gather in the reception following the service, I know you will find solace in the profound impact Dodie had on each of you. Her dedication to creative art was unparalleled, and her ability to uplift all those around her with words of encouragement, acts of kindness, and occasional discipline, I understand, from some of the family, will never be forgotten. So we have gathered not so much to mourn her passing, but more importantly, to celebrate the incredible, beautiful, long life she led. And as you see in the lobby as you came in and afterwards, you will see those images of her over the years with that beautiful family and listen to the reflections of her daughter and two of her sons today. We will all remember her as they do and as she would want us to, with joy in our hearts to recall the countless moments of intensive intellectual discussion, laughter, love, and inspiration she bestowed upon all of us in her long life. And so I now would invite her first child, Helen Varner, to come forward and share what she would like to hear at the lectern over there, if that's okay. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. She lived a long time and I'm old.
It happened.
It happens. Okay. First of all, thank you so much for coming to honor my mother. She was quite a character. And I am her eldest child. There were a bunch of us, and I am her only daughter. Years ago, she sent me specific instructions for her funeral. Yeah, prepare yourself. Actually, it's a list of what she wanted us not to do. So I'm going to go down the list and do it, of course. She taught me to be independent. If I offend anyone who thinks that this should be a solemn and mournful activity, let me apologize right now. Dodie would rather have us laugh. So I'm going to quote her, and then I'll respond to what she says. About my obit, claiming that's actually me in the tattoo on Charlie Sheen's butt may be overboard. My first job on the old Tribune was putting the dead in alphabetical order, and I knew even then that there's a reason why most of the people in the civilized world skip the obits and abandon the abominable Christmas letter. So here are a few rules. 1, do not say I courageously fought whatever, okay? That's got to be ridiculous. Who courageously fights Alzheimer's, for instance? Think about it. She fought for a century. That's enough. Then she went peacefully into the night. Do not list whatever you happen to think are my achievements. In the first place, you're bound to blow it. My achievements don't exactly ring a bell with you, my dears, and anyway, they're sort of like owning fancy cars. They just bug the hell out of your friends and chap your enemies. Nobody loves people because they've achieved. She was a columnist and reporter for the Galveston Tribune and Galveston Daily News and the Houston Chronicle under the pseudonym Marcus Dickey for a number of years. She was commissioned to write the history of the Galveston medical branch. She wrote 1 poetry and 4 fictional books, published poetry in numerous magazines. I have cardboard boxes of magazines. Sculpted a variety of large and small pieces, painted oils and watercolors, and created collages which won awards from the Women in the Visual and Literary Arts and other groups. I'm curious too, because the visual was a big part of her later life. Do we have people here from the Women in the Visual? And yes, we do, quite a few. Okay, good. Look for your pictures in the thing. Okay. Quote. Don't go nuts with the survivor lists. How can anybody ever be certain that relatives are actually related? Stuff happens. And even if you're pretty sure, tone it down. There have been too many people wrecking the world for too long. We're all related, big whoop. Leave it at that. Relatives here today, and if you would just please stand. Sherry is her sister from Portales, New Mexico. And I've introduced myself. This is my daughter, Jennifer, who was kind enough to give me a lift today. Robert, Dickey, and Jonina. Robert is her son, there, okay? And I'm probably going to miss people because there are people coming from all over the world. Robert, is Kelly here? Yes. Oh, I know you're here, Kelly, sorry. Okay, James Dickey from Galveston. Looks like he's going to be running late, probably, okay? And Michael, I think most of you know, Michael Messer, who lived there. Kimberly Messer, representing Michael's twin, who we lost in 2024. Dodie's nieces, Juliet Bryant, I don't know where you are, and Jennifer Friedland. Julie and Jennifer are the children of Dodie's sister. There were 4 girls, so let's see. I think I've got everybody. Am I missing somebody? Probably. What? Taylor. Well, I didn't see her. Okay, Taylor, Robert and Janina's daughter, Taylor. Okay. Anybody else? Marissa Dickey, James' daughter, who is, can I say, expecting? Yay, another member of the family. We're pretty sure about this one, right? Yeah, okay. Okay. Number 4, do not dig up a class photo of me at 18. Most of the people I know never saw me looking at all like that, and you give some of these characters have a chance, they're going to hurt themselves. People our age crack wide open when we crack up. A slideshow will be shown later, and we have all kinds of embarrassing pictures. Anyway, this brings us to eulogies. I forbid it. If you knew my friends the way I do, just put your foot down. Tough. Do not pay more to have my obituary run than you do for the wake. There is no excuse for that. We put the obituary on our Facebook page and on the church's homepage rather than in print. She had 3,400 friends on Facebook. Okay, quote. And finally, for God's sake, serve decent wine. Anybody who shows up with wine in a box, turn them away at the door. Hire a bouncer if you have to. My wine supply's in the cabinet up over the fridge. If I've run low, go to Specs. Tell the nice man I'm gone. He'll steer you. We've been on a first-name basis for years. No wine today, but feel free to toast her later. Okay, number 8. And last of all, do not, triple negative, do not do the open coffin thing. Anybody lifts up any little kid to look at what's left of me is going to find out about zombies. I've made plans to be cremated, as you know. Anybody shows up with marshmallows on a stick, let them in. Let them in, kids, and applaud. Doesn't that sound like her? I can almost hear her saying it, really. Okay. She was cremated, but no one showed up with marshmallows. Okay. That's it. Do we understand each other? Good. Oh, and be kind to squirrels, kids. I just might reincarnate as one of those furry-tailed rodents hanging upside down on your bird feeder. I know how you feel about those little bastards, but that's kind of how things will most likely pan out. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. And that is the end of her do not do instructions. And I know I've run over, but that's her time, not mine, so it doesn't count. I have just a couple of personal experiences I would like to share. One of my earliest memories of her reading to me at bedtime, she was a big reader. She read A. Milne, and so I knew about Winnie the Pooh, but I never heard of green eggs and ham until I was an adult. Instead, I went to Treasure Island with Robert Louis Stevenson, to the moon with Edgar Rice Burroughs. I spent a lot of time with H.G. Wells, and I went to the bottom of the sea with Jules Verne, and deep into the jungle with my favorite, Rudyard Kipling. When I was 12, I almost died of mumps encephalitis and was bedridden for a long time. I was a sickly kid anyway. She decided I needed something to look at and painted murals from the Jungle Book on all of the walls of my bedroom. It was high grasses, and over here was a bear at the foot of a tree asleep, and there were monkeys on a tree over my head. And on here was another big tree with a branch. It had a snake over here and a panther, a black panther, you know, with that one on the branch over my head. And in the tall grass at the foot of my bed was this tiger peeking out of the grasses with bright yellow eyes. Maybe that's why I have insomnia. No, at the time, it sounds scary, but it really wasn't, because these were friends of mine. I knew them well, and I loved the mural, actually. She gifted me with a love of literature, good writing, imagination, and creativity. My grandfather was somewhat surprised at the colorful murals in the beach cottage he had loaned us. But when he saw the full-size, overly endowed, semi-nude mermaid on the inside of the bathroom door, it's the only time I ever saw him blush. Our house was always full of fascinating people. She believed that the more different someone was from you, the more interesting they were. And so I learned to appreciate differing cultures and languages and people and religions, and that gift meant that my life has been enriched by wonderful but very different people. Not all of her gifts came from happy times. I remember driving through the mountains of California on our way to Texas with 2 babies asleep in the back seat, and I just saw one of those babies walk in. This is James, my other brother. I had a slew of them. Both of us were terrified. We had no money or other resources. We were hungry, afraid of the dark, and unsure of the welcome we might get at the end of the road. We sang everything we could think of at the top of our lungs to keep her awake during the drive. When we ran out of songs we knew, we sang advertising jingles. She sang advertising jingles to me as a lullaby. My beer is Rheingold, the dry beer. Think of Rheingold whenever you buy beer. It's hung with me for a long time. The experience, though, taught me resilience and courage. I learned how to make stone soup. We had no money, but we always had each other, and I knew that she loved me and supported me in anything I tried. We might have to eat beans and cornbread, but we always had books and songs and paints and each other. One I think of the most cherished gifts that she gave me, though, was she taught me to celebrate with complete abandon. Laugh hard and often, and to the point where tears run down your face. The happy dance when I got my first library card lasted for weeks and would burst out of us at a moment's notice like confetti. We did the happy dance often, sometimes over minor victories, but it added joy and optimism to my life. We didn't always agree. My vote countered hers for 50 years, so we learned not to discuss politics, but we always loved each other fiercely, without judgment, even when we make mistakes. I will miss her. Fare thee well, Darlene, Ruth, Marcus, Kemper, Dickey, Mr. Meeks, and thanks.
Robert, your turn. Here's the thank you note. 5 minutes. I think we got all the family members besides Rocio Dickey, who came in late with my brother.
I am Robert Dickey, Dodie's eldest son and second-born child, and I am pretty sure her favorite of all the children. I say that only partially in jest because my mom really had a way of making us all feel singularly loved. She just showered us with love. She openly admitted to us that we were all conceived in error. We were all accidents. She had been betrayed by various forms of birth control in her life, but that didn't really, the fact that we weren't planned didn't matter to Dodie. The fact that we were here is what mattered. And she showered us with love. I remember, well, I would say this, she showered us with love with such a ferocity that I think it may well have been to the detriment of some of her marriages. Because in my mom's mind, the kids were special, the kids could do very little wrong, and the husbands could be replaced. One of my earliest memories is the trip Helen spoke of when we drove from California to Texas. What she didn't say is that trip was because my mom left my father, James and I's father, and she took the kids and was moving back. So she packed what she had of belongings, 3 kids, into an old Studebaker, the way I remember it. Now, mind you, I was 4 or 5, but I do remember some parts of the trip, and I remember it being kind of a happy, fun trip. The old Studebaker, I remember, had a faulty starter. So in order to start her, when it wouldn't start, we would all get out and push, and Mom would jump in and dump the clutch and start it, and we roll away. We sang songs, like Helen said, we played games. It was not a difficult time for us. I'm sure it was very stressful and difficult for Helen and my mom. We drove from Southern California to Texas to move into what was generously called the Bay Cliff Cottage, which was my grandparents' little Bay Cliff house that was really, truly a shack. I went back years later with my wife to show it to her, and even I was appalled. It didn't have air conditioning, it didn't have heating. We used space heaters. It was drafty, but it was warm and happy because when it was really cold, I don't know if it was a 1 or 2 bedroom house, but I know my mom's bed was out on the screened-in porch. And when it was really cold, the 4 of us slept together in Mom's bed. And we did what we called spooning. And Mom read to us. And she read lots of books. She read to us every single night. But the book, Jungle Story, was one of the books she read to us a lot. And as Helen said, she painted the bedroom, not just the walls, but the ceiling, everything, with monkeys and coconuts and bears. And it was just a wonderful time. My mom was never much of a disciplinarian. To be honest, she was a pushover as a mom. We got away with a lot because she was so easy and so loving. But she did have guideposts, moral guideposts that she insisted on. But she never taught it in negativity. She would say things like, I remember all these things I can hear her voice saying, we are the kind of people that tell the truth. We are the kind of people that do not discriminate. We love all people. We don't have rights in people we do and don't like. We're the kind of people that would never think of stealing. And with me in particular, she spoke a lot about the manners of a gentleman when he escorts a lady. And as a little kid, she talked about it with me. She would say a gentleman always walks on the street side of the sidewalk when escorting a lady. A gentleman always jumps to his feet when a lady enters the room. A gentleman always stands when a lady exits or approaches the table. And when she returns to the table, he stands and seats her. These are things, this is what we do. We're that kind of people. And when she puts it that way, it's kind of hard not to live up to that. You just feel less than if you don't. And then, of course, a gentleman always opens the door for a lady. And if a gentleman's in a situation where there's limited seating and there's a lady standing, of course, he stands and offers a seat. Those are just givens that if we didn't do them, we get a look very quickly. And I'll finish, because I'm going to stay within my 5 minutes, Helen, and tell a quick story about my mom and her manners. When I was maybe 14, maybe 15, I don't know. When I got my learner's permit, and we lived in Westview, it fell to my mom to teach me to drive. My stepfather had no interest, so she we got into Brad's 65 Corvair with 4 on the floor and holes in the floor. It literally did for Hurricane Carla. And Jimmy and I used to drop stuff through the holes on the paper. And Mom took me over to Rice Stadium and pulled up in the middle of the stadium. She was going to teach me to drive a stick shift. Now, those of you that knew my mom when she was driving or knew her anytime, she was really a bad driver. I mean, as a kid, I remember wondering why people were always honking at us. And I remember as a teenager riding in the car with her rolling the window down and doing this to cars to go around because she was going 45 on the freeway and couldn't understand why people were honking at her and piling up behind her. So we pulled up in the middle of the parking lot, and this is the person who's going to teach me to drive a 4-speed stick shift. And I'm excited and nervous. So we both get out of the car. I ran around, she ran around. I jumped in the driver's seat, and I'm sitting there working the stick shift, pumping the clutch, and excited, ready to start the engine, get going. And I realized that Mom's standing outside the car, just standing there with her hands folded in front of her, waiting. Then it dawned on me. So I jumped out, ran around, opened the door. Mom slid into the car. I closed the door. Came around back, sat down, and looked over and said, "Sorry, Mom." And she looked at me and said, "You're a good boy, Bobby, and you make your mama proud." That was my mom. I get to introduce Michael. My brother Michael's going to be the last to speak, and I have to tell you this. In my household, we called him Saint Michael because Michael did so many wonderful things for my mom in the last 10, 15 years of her life. I cannot tell you the times in my prayer I've said, "Thank you, God. Thank you, Lord, for Michael." He is a saint.
Mr. Wonderful, I think, is what he was looking for there. Mr. Wonderful. Mom's slave, right. It's funny to me, a lot of people spend a lot more years with Dodie in their life than I did, but I had her for 65 years, and I'm really glad that I did. As my brother and sister said, she was really good at taking care of children, and she had a lot of practice with babies by the time Kimball and I showed up. But one kid going through the terrible twos is test for any parent, but Kimball and I teamed up and managed to get into all kinds of trouble despite above average supervision. I'm pretty sure there's still some green paint on the sidewalk next door to 1009 Church Street in Galveston. Mom's recollection of that story is that Kimball and I thought that the sidewalk and the cyclone fence would look better with some green paint, and the neighbor's dog could use some green paint also. That poor dog. Anyway, a few years ago, that house came up for sale, 1009 Church Street, and Kimball saw that it was for sale, so he and I met up, and we actually went and walked through the house and looked at everything. And I went next door, and there are some splotches on the sidewalk that might be 60-year-old green paint, evidence of childhood mischief. Anyway, skipping ahead, in 2019, Mom and I decided that it would be fun to live together again, and for the next 6 years, we shared the house with 2 big dogs. And we had a daily routine that we both enjoyed a lot. During that time, our relationship changed. What Dodie was to me became a best friend. I would go to work and hear a funny joke and be eager to get home and tell Mom the joke and see her reaction to it. Or my boss would come up with something that caused me a lot of stress, and I would go home and bounce it off of Mom, and she would almost always have a diplomatic way to look at it and a way to get it solved. So she would tell me a funny little story or about something that happened decades ago, and I would go to work and share that with the guys at work or with my buddies on my bicycle rides, and then I'd go back home and say, "Mom, my bicycle friends reacted to your story this way," and she would enjoy that. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned so far is that Mom taught us to play chess, and I think she taught all of her kids to play chess, but Kimball and I were probably 8 or 9 years old when we learned how to play chess, and we played from time to time back then, but when we moved in together, I got a chess set and set it up on the dining room table, and we would play chess almost every night. And I tell you what, having a 90-something-year-old woman push her queen all the way across the board to trap your king on the back row and say, checkmate, kind of humiliating. But she was actually a really good player, and she was also clever and sneaky. And losing to her was almost worth it because it was so much fun for her. Mom joined me for coffee every morning and still fixed lunch almost every day, almost to the very end. In the evenings, we'd sit on the couch and we'd watch Lester Holt, and we'd have to skip probably most of the national news or world news lately, and then we'd go to the local news. A lot of the times we'd skip most of the local news and just go to the 10-day weather forecast. But after we'd watch the news, we would turn on BBC or BritBox, and we'd watch Agatha Christie's Poirot or Midsummer Murders, and we enjoyed our routine. We'd pop up a bowl of popcorn, send the dogs upstairs, and watch TV. We'd also have cheese on crackers sometimes. It was a lot of fun. Another odd thing about Mom was that she was one of the very few people on earth who could actually enjoy hearing me sing. Sometimes when she was a little low, or in the rare times that she didn't feel wonderful, if I would start singing a song, it would light up her face. So now I'm going to sing for you. No, I'm not. Our time together was good. I know that she had a happy life all in all, but I'm pleased to say that the last 6 years of her life were certainly some of the best for her, and some of my best years too. Every first Friday, she headed up a luncheon with a bunch of lady friends that were very dear friends of hers, and that monthly meeting is part of why she lived past 100 years. She really loved her friends, and she loved to hear what had happened since the last First Friday. She loved to tell what was going on in her life. They would share artwork and poetry, and it was really a first-class, brilliant bunch of ladies, and they're carrying on the tradition without Mom, but that was one really special thing for her, and a lot of the First Friday ladies are here. For me, having Mom share my house in the last part of her life was a real pleasure. It was easy for me to hear her laughter in my mind. I can see her smile, and I know that she was happy. But as much as she enjoyed life, she was ready for death. She was not afraid of it. And she'd been ready for a while. Lester Holt would tell us about a celebrity who'd passed on at 92 or 89, and she would point to the TV and she'd say, see, he gets to go to sleep. He gets to go to sleep. Why don't I get to go to sleep? And I would tell her, Mom, don't worry. Sometime in the next 10 or 15 years, it'll be your turn to sleep. So now she sleeps, and she's at peace. And she was a treasure for us to share while she was alive, and we have a lot of happy memories of being with her. We'll think of her as we read the poems that she wrote and as we look at her beautiful paintings. I think most of you here have some of her paintings and cards, but there will be some at the reception afterwards also that I hope that you'll take with you, because they make people happy, I think. So she'll be missed by her thousands of friends on Facebook, as Robert mentioned. We all wish that she was still with us, but she was ready and it was time. And I hope maybe that her spirit is aware of the people who are here, both in person and on the internet. Nothing made Mom happier than to see the faces of her family and friends and to be with them. And if she was here, she would certainly love seeing all of your faces. Thank you for being here to celebrate.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Robert, and thank you, Helen, for sharing some of your intimate moments and your memories of Dodie. I'm struck that my own mother would be 101 in 2 weeks from now. She's been gone about 10 years. And as I was listening, especially to Helen, I was thinking, what a gift it was to have someone in your family who was so much like Ann Richards and Molly Ivins, who only lived to be 63 and 73, respectively. If we'd had them for another 27 years, that would have been pretty nice for all of Texas. But Dodie carried on and made an impression on lots of people over a long period of time. My wife is also an artist. She mostly does acrylics, but having seen this wonderful reproduction of one of Dodie's watercolors, I'm struck with how much beauty she reflected in her mind, in her heart, in her words, and in her her perspective on what life is and should be. And the fact that there's this large coterie of families still speaking to each other after all these years is a positive reflection on Dodie's influence, it seems to me. But as we consider the life, the century of creativity that Dodie brought to this world and to Texas over the past many years, it also strikes me that today in Amsterdam, Holland, is Tulip Day. And having Dodie show up on March 31st, 1925 in Holland, Michigan, the home of the Tulip Fest, which actually goes on in the months of March and April in Holland, Michigan, that this service of observance of the beauty of her life is a remarkable coincidence that I could not let pass mentioning, because she did so much and made so much of what was such a small security that she made over and over. She was able to recreate and continue and give strength to her children and family over so many years. Like Elizabeth Taylor, she believed in marriage. And that's a remarkable commentary that I think is reflected well. But my closing words today are from actually one of Dodie's poems that I was able to find from an excerpt. I won't read the long one, which is called Mary, Mary, but I will read an excerpt from Advice for the Bride by Dodie Meeks. Dear little ladies with dear little voices have ended upended on ant-teeming slopes, or after a tiff have been dropped from a cliff, or dangled forlornly on slow-turning ropes. Girls who must have the last word every argument have eaten their words in a dank dungeon keep, or languished in stocks, or been fed glowing rocks, or watched cable vision and given up sleep. Ladies with tongues far less acid than mine is gurgled on guillotines writhed on the rack. All that I have to fear, tell me I'm lucky, dear, is the dank certainty that one won't be back. All my proud sisterhood, swearing you will be good, wishing instead you could be still as a stone. Raise your arm, make a fist, swear to remember this. Grammatical errors are best left alone. All my proud sisterhood, knowing too well you should be ever so careful to leave it unsaid. No matter what you hear, always remember, dear, never correct a man's grammar in bed. The tone of that rhyme said so much to me about the Dodie that you remember, the Dodie whose life was so full, the Dodie whose love for you was so deep and echoed in her receiving your love throughout her long years. We close the service today with the benediction, and I will extinguish the chalice following those words. Dodie Messer Meeks brought life, and life was hers in return. Let us echo and live out her example in our own lives, in every day, with beauty and love and joy, and maybe a joke or a poem or two along the way. Blessed be. Amen. Mim, would you like to come up and play a little as I extinguish the chalice? Thank you. The service is ended. Let us go reminisce together, enjoy watching the slideshow, and then the next building over is where the reception will be held in a few minutes. At your leisure.